and I like helping out wherever I can help out. And I think that's the best part for me about being a perfusionist.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to another episode of Perfusion Rockstars, episode 8. Today is Sunday, August 30th, 2020. This is a weekend edition of Perfusion Rockstars to accommodate Andrea's clinical schedule. And we're here with Perfusion Rockstar Andrea Pang. We appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. I'm Adam Clark, owner of Perfusion Life. This is Todd Clark, Director of Operations with Perfusion Life. We are Perfusion Life. And please like, comment, and subscribe. We really do value and appreciate our viewers. So thank you very much. While we have Andrea here today, we're going to initially review your CV, kind of some general background of your career. And then we're going to go into some perfusion questions, learn a little bit about you, then some personal questions, learn a little more about you as a person and kind of what makes you tick. And then Andrea asked that we touch on perfusion travel questions. So for those of you that are interested in traveling, I think you're going to find this episode very valuable, considering Andrea's experience and knowledge of being a traveling perfusionist. And then of course, we're going to finish with a lightning round, and Todd will manage that. So that'll be fun. So stay tuned for that as well. So let's kick off the CV piece. You started your education with a concentration in biochemistry and a minor in biology from Northwestern State University, and that was in May of 2006. You did very well. You had a GPA of 3.42. Good job. And then from there, you were considering pharmacy, it looks like. You did 1 year of pharmacy school.
Yes, I did 1 year of the 4-year program of a doctorate of pharmacy, and it was just completely boring, and that was just not the route for me.
All right, well, perfusion's not boring. So, right, that was 06, 07, and then you went to perfusion school and graduated in Cleveland, Ohio from the Cleveland Clinic in May of 2010, so about 10 years ago. From there, she received her first job at University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Virginia, a beautiful place. You were there for 5 years approximately. And then you jumped into the traveling market. So you've been traveling for about 4 years or so. I just noticed in your profile, you learn quickly and you're a team player. And I agree with that based on all the feedback I've received from you in your traveling profession. So, and then skills, I'm not going to list them all. Andrea's seen it all and done it all when it comes to perfusion.
I wouldn't say that at all.
As far as what I've seen and heard. Certifications, you do have your license in Pennsylvania, Missouri, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and New York. And you've won a couple presentation scholarship contests in 2010. Congratulations on those as well.
That was a decade ago. Maybe I should start taking that off the resume.
Well, I think it's valuable. I think it's impressive. I also noticed you presented in Paris, France. I think that also offers.
I had a poster presentation, yes.
Yeah, right. That's pretty impressive as well. So I'm sure you enjoyed that conference for a change. So anyway, I think that's about it for the CV review. Todd, if you'd like to start with some questions.
All right. So you kind of touched on this a little bit when you were talking about pharmaceuticals. I mean, yeah, you're working on your doctorate and you're kind of bored. Can you tell us about the moment you decided you want to become a perfusionist?
So I was actually approached about perfusion when I was in undergrad. I used to volunteer with the American Heart Association. And I used to travel like internationally for them to different international schools teaching about jump rope for heart and heart surgery and that kind of thing. So I needed 2 weeks off from college, and that's kind of a lot of time to ask a professor or, you know, when you're in undergrad, if you can take that kind of time. So I went to my biology professor and I told him I needed some time. And he was saying, oh, you should go into med school. And I was, at that time, I was like, no, I want a family. I want this, that, and the other. I do not want to spend the rest of my years in medical school. And he was like, you should look into perfusion. So I was already accepted into pharmacy school. And I was like, no, I'm going to pharmacy school. This has been the plan for a long time. So I went, and then I didn't like it. And so I came back to him during the summer and I was like, so tell me about perfusion. And he set me up with a perfusionist who, I went to a small school, so I knew the perfusionist. So I observed an off-pump cabbage, and then I observed a cabbage. And then they put you at the head of the field like they put everyone. And I just knew then and there, when that surgeon sawed into that sternotomy and the heart was just beating in my face, I knew then and there that's where I wanted to be. And so I went to perfusion school, and here I am now.
That's great.
That is awesome. That's nice.
So obviously that professor has been influential in your personal and professional career and development. Is there anyone else in your professional or personal career that has been influential?
I think about the times now that I'm like, oh, wow, I've been out for 10 years. I think coming out of school, I don't know how Cleveland teaches now, but I followed 3 primary instructors, and I had 3 great instructors for foundations. My very first instructor, Dave Ogella, he was very influential. He's retired now, did a lot of papers, was president of several different perfusion organizations. So he taught me the basics of perfusion. He was very hands-on. And then when he figured out I had it, he kind of let up a little. And then I switched to another perfusionist, Valerie. And it was great to be with her because it was great to see women in the field and how it's a little bit different with like being under a male perfusionist. And then I switched to Pat Grady. And I don't know if he's the chief perfusionist in Cleveland. I think he was at one point, but he taught me to think outside of the box of perfusion. So he made me do something different every single day. And I think that plays a lot into traveling now, because you go into different hospitals and it's not all the same. You're working with whatever they have. So you have to really think outside the box sometimes to get where you want to get to. So I would say those 3 definitely in my early career. Now I have 2 really good friends. And for traveling, if you can keep in touch with like a couple of perfusionists you trust, and if you say something dumb to them, that they're not going to judge you. So we have a kind of a group chat of like, have you seen this? Have you done this? So there's these 2 girls that, I worked in Virginia with, and we keep in touch like every week, every single day. Sometimes it depends what's going on in perfusion. And I think for my personal career, I have a lot of strong women in my group and in my social. And like I have one of my really best friends, she's a heart surgeon, another one's a pediatric heart surgeon, and the other one's an NP. So if I don't know what's going on in heart surgery or how to care for a patient, those are the 4 women that I just like am always in contact with.
Impressive.
You have a pretty powerful circle around you.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
I think you need that.
You do.
So what's your perfusion superpower? Or if you have multiple, what do you think?
I would say I am a shape shifter, and not in the sense of like I transform into an animal or anything, but shape shifter in the sense of I can go into stealth mode and I can just blend in. And I think that's the job of a traveler. When you go into a contract, you're there to be one of them. So you immediately have to, gauge their personalities, gauge the surgeons, gauge everyone around you, and just be able to go in stealth mode and become one of them immediately.
Yeah.
Stealth perfusion.
That's great. Exactly. That's what we always say, stealth perfusion. So if you're a shapeshifter, you can certainly do that. Tell us about a time when things went south in the operating room and how you fixed it.
I think we're all trained for those moments that go south in the operating room, whether it's the patient goes into asystole and you need a crash-on bypass, or there's a dissection, or whatever it is. I think as perfusionists, we are all trained to do that. More recently, I think a moment that you'd say I've seen everything and I know everything. I swear I learn something new at every account I go to, and I see something that I've never seen. So I took over a pump, and it was just a standard cabbage ×3, and the surgeon said, fill the heart. Well, I go to fill the heart, and the whole venous line falls off. And, you would think on the arterial side, because there's so much high pressure, that's going to fall off. I saw that in school a couple different times, but never the venous side. And luckily they, they don't use backing there, they use gravity. So, but it's instincts, and it's something you go back on foundation. Like in school, we had a lot of sim labs, and actually in Virginia, we had a lot of sim labs. So immediately it's just like reaction, flow down, spike the plasma light, and just grab the line, pinch it off and reconnect. And by the time I had already said, venous line is out, we're off bypass, and the surgeon had looked down, we were already back on bypass. It was only 5 to 10 seconds. So I don't think it went south, but it could have been a bad situation. And the surgeon, like, I'm prepared to be yelled at because he sees blood on the floor, but he made a joke, and he was just like, now, you're married. Things sometimes come undone when you're married. Believe me, I would know. And so the whole OR just started laughing, and that's just a situation I thought was just going to be like, he was just going to explode, and here he is making jokes.
Right.
He's like, wait, do we need a recirc? Is there air in the pump? And it's like, no, we're already on bypass. Keep sewing. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, that's great because you handled it so well. He was able to joke around about it a little bit and move on quickly. So
yes,
good work.
That's a good story. It kind of leads us to the next question. What's the best part about your career as a perfusionist?
I love going into different hospitals, and I know that, that account needs relief. If I'm going in as a traveler, the account needs help. So I like going in, and I like meeting new people, and I like helping out wherever I can help out. And I think that's the best part for me about being a perfusionist.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
That's great.
So where do you see yourself in 10 years, Andrea?
So in 10 years, if I'm not traveling, I always knew when I was a student that I wanted to travel. So I knew I would be here one day.
Mm-hmm.
I think perfusion students, there needs to be good teachers. I had great instructors, and I think my way of giving back is one day, maybe not now, maybe in 10 years, if I'm not traveling, I'll be an instructor.
Wonderful. Well, hopefully this interview can help some people make some decisions in their careers as well. So you'll be giving back and helping once we finish up this interview.
Sorry. So that's kind of our basic perfusion questions we're going to ask you. Obviously, we'll touch on some traveling perfusion questions a little later. But now to get to kind of know you better, do you have any personal hobbies that you're doing?
Oh, well, I'm always on the road, but a lot of people ask, do you travel for business or just pleasure? And I travel for both. If I'm not traveling for perfusion, I am on a plane across the ocean somewhere else, maybe not so much with COVID right now. Yeah. But I was just, I woke up to some memories. And last year I was in like Malaysia and Sri Lanka and Indonesia. So I travel for fun. Before I started traveling, I used to do a lot of ballroom dancing. I had my A license in skydiving. I haven't jumped out of a plane since I started traveling.
Wow.
So those are some of the hobbies.
I did just speak with a perfusionist from Missouri, one of the ones that was trying to reach you for that one assignment when you were in, I think, Malaysia. So we were kind of laughing about that story, when she was like, she's not answering her phone. I'm like, that's because she's not in the United States. She's traveling. So that was in between assignments for you. So that's great. So since this is Perfusion Rockstar, do you have a favorite band, music, genre, something you like to listen to?
I like all music except country music. And it's such the irony because I live in Nashville. Yeah. I cannot stand country music. I don't know if it's the twang or what. It just makes me angry.
That's pretty bad. Don't listen to country. Yeah.
So I like anything else. I like alternative. I love Black Keys. I like Muse. I was classically trained when I was younger, so I love classical music. I will eventually, when we can go listen to live music again, I love going to like a symphony.
Mm-hmm. So what instrument? What instrument did you play?
Oh, I played the piano.
Wow, great.
Good skill. So you're not going to too many open mic nights in downtown Nashville.
Unfortunately, I'm not going anywhere in Nashville.
Well,
I'm on the road traveling.
All right. So someone hears about your story and your life and they want to write a book about you, what's the name of that biography?
I would think The Amazing Adventures of Andrea and What's in Her Suitcase. I mean, this kind of lifestyle, you're always on the road, you're always living out of a suitcase. And then, I love traveling for leisure. So it's just a switch off to another bigger suitcase. So
nice. I like that. Yeah, I know you. I remember when I was first introduced to you through my dad. Yeah, and you were traveling, and it seems like you travel a lot, which is nice. I know that it's relaxing, especially if you enjoy doing that.
Well, we can touch on that during the travel questions. What's in your suitcase? Maybe there's some things that people can learn if they want to travel. That's great. So, Andrea, if that is turned into a movie, who's going to play Andrea Pang?
Lucy Liu, she's my childhood actress crush. And, being Asian, I didn't really see much representation of myself besides her. So she's always had my heart. So she's definitely playing me.
That's wonderful.
Great. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I can see that. So, all right. So now we're going to get into some travel questions, and we'll keep this kind of fluid. And I know we want this to be valuable for people that are considering traveling or maybe traveling and just want to learn more about it from someone who's been doing it for a while. But I get asked a lot of these questions. I know you do when you're on the road. So between the two of us, hopefully we can answer the bulk of the questions that we're used to hearing. But I know a common one is, how many hours do you work? What's your workload like? What's the typical assignment? Do you get time off? Do you take call weekends, weekdays? What are your thoughts on that topic?
So I want to back up a second.
Yes.
So there's two different kind of travelers, and there's the type of travelers, which I first started out as you work for a company. So you're basically going to their accounts and doing whatever, filling in for those perfusionists at their accounts. And more kind of what I do now in traveling is either like independent traveling, subcontracting with Perfusion Life. And as an independent, there's two types of independents. There's like me, who subcontracts with a company like you, or there's the kind of traveler, the independent traveler who negotiates themselves with the hospital and does their own kind of contract. So the question that you asked, I'm going to talk more about subcontracting with like Perfusion Life. Okay. And I think the hours and the workload depend on what the contract needs. And I think that you, Adam, that's the kind of question that people ask up front, but you're very good at saying that this is what they need, and whether you're going to be taking call or you're not going to be taking call, and how long the contract is. So my dream assignment, and I still haven't found that dream assignment, is working 2 weeks on call, and then 2 weeks off. And that's just not how this market is. Usually the assignments are average 12 to 13 weeks. And if you take call, it depends on what the contract is asking. They may just be asking for you for day shift and no call, or they may want you to take call, but that's dependent on whatever the contract is at that moment. You don't make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, it really is. It really is variable from account to account.
If I have a vacation planned, that's something I'll tell you up front. That I have already planned this vacation and I will take this vacation. Right. And it's non-negotiable. And usually you get someone else in there. But sometimes you can't do that. I mean, most times I'm able to take that time off if it's already planned, but it's something up front that I do say that I've already planned. But if something were to come up during the contract, I mean, no, you don't get that time off. And then do you work weekends? That's another thing that's the contract itself. It's not something you decide.
Right. All right. So I get to ask this question a lot as well. And I know you and I have discussed this, and I see this as one of your superpowers is, do you have time to get acclimated? Do they have proper training for you? Orientation, that topic of, and I'd like to hear your
Sure. I think it depends on the contract itself. In my head, when I go to a new contract, I automatically assume that I am not going to be trained. If you want training and you're just getting into the traveling world, it might be best to go kind of like I did. I went with a perfusion company and I went to their accounts and they're able to train you. But like if I'm subcontracting with you, I automatically assume, no, I'm not going to be trained. My job is to step into that role as a perfusionist and be one of them. Now, if you do get trained, it's usually like 1 day, 2 days max. And I feel like as a traveler, you should be able to go in already, have some kind of foundation and just be able to pump. That's the easy part. The hard part is the communication, is what the surgeon calls what you're acclimated and you're used to calling something else, but he does not, those are not his words. Or figuring out like cannulas or just like electronic charting. When I go in and I have a day where there's like a teaching day, then I'm not really learning the case itself because I know the case. I'm learning communication and how you chart your case. So the saying in traveling is see one, do one, teach one. And it's very much, that's what's expected. If you get a training day, you get 1 day, then you're supposed to be able to do it. And then you're supposed to be able to teach the next person who comes in.
Right.
But some contracts, I mean, they're very few and far between because people need their perfusionists and they need you to pump. I mean, there are a few that will give you, 2 days or 3 days, but usually I just already assume that I'm not going to be trained.
Okay, good answer. So people always ask about pay. I know there's a range, lodging expenses. Do you have something you could share regarding that topic of what to expect as a traveler?
Sure. That very much depends on the contract. Once again, a lot of these questions depends on your contract. And I know you're very upfront with how much you're going to be paid on the daily rate. So people ask, what's the limit of a hotel, this, that, and the other. I'm not staying in the fanciest hotel. I may be staying in an Airbnb because it costs less. And I think that's something I never really negotiated with you, but like, I know you told me one time this traveler was, I was going to an account in Missouri and you're like, oh, this traveler is staying here for this much. And I was just like, wow, they're living the grand life staying in that fancy hotel. I was like, I didn't realize I could get a fancy hotel like that, but I don't tend to push the limits on hotels. Like you're there to do a job. I'm not staying in a roach motel for,
Sure.
I'm probably staying just your average hotel. And nothing fancy. I mean, if the Airbnbs are usually that cost less in that area, I'll probably take an Airbnb. But that's a question that people should ask you, what their limit is. Right. And as for the pay reimbursement, I think that's a question you probably get a lot. So you want me to explain that?
Well, no, I think they all vary too. I think, sometimes a perfusionist will say to me, well, this is what I demand for this assignment. And I'll say, well, I'm sorry, that doesn't align with what our current agreement is with this assignment that we've negotiated with their legal department and their administration, and I can't change it on the fly. Some assignments you get paid a flat daily rate and then you manage your own expenses. Other assignments, you're being paid per day and then you're being reimbursed for expenses. What I typically tell travelers on average, maybe make about $1,000 plus expenses. Could be a little less, could be a little more. I don't know if you think that's sort of a fair number or accurate in today's market.
I think it's a fair number. I think, and people always get the number like a little jaded that they can like demand more. But I think with Perfusion Life, it's across the board. Like all your travelers, you're making this amount and you're being reimbursed your expenses. And I think that's a pretty fair deal. There are a few accounts that you've said that, oh, you're going to make a little bit more, but you need to pay your own way, your travel expenses, which include your flights, your rental car, your hotel lodging. those are the travel expenses that you usually pay, but the few accounts that you do say that you're going to be paid more, but you need to figure that out. You're very upfront with that. And I haven't taken a smaller account, but you have said like you're going to make a little less because this is a smaller account and whatever reason. I think most people need to realize that, your numbers are standard across the board. I mean, and it's either a yes or a no. Either yes, you're going to do it for this amount of time, or no, and you're not going to do it. And these are the terms of agreement.
Yeah.
As a subcontractor, or at least a subcontractor with you, that's the agreement right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like you either take it or you don't. And this is the time frame. There's really no negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And if there is, I don't know. I haven't heard that.
Right. I mean, there are situations where someone has to move to a different hotel and they go to an account we weren't expecting and like, hey, can you pick up my Uber now? I'm like, sure.
Little things.
Yeah. We
But
for
the most part though,
we try to be reasonable.
Yeah.
But, So I get asked a lot of questions about W-2 versus 1099 and how you handle taxes, health insurance, things like that. Would you be willing to share your perspective on that?
Oh gosh. So for health insurance, when I initially quit my first job, I did Cobra, and Cobra is a little expensive. Mm-hmm. But if you quit your job, you can actually go into a marketplace and sign up, and they let you get a health insurance plan then instead of in November or December when open enrollment is. So you actually can go get a personal plan. Right now, I did that, and then I did a medical share plan. Have you heard of those? Where you just kind of, I don't go to the doctor a lot because I can't actually remember the last time I went to the doctor, which is horrible because I'm always on the road and doctors really don't open on the weekend. But I did a medical share plan, and it's something where people want to not do your traditional health insurance. It's a different option to like kind of pay cash forward, and you can look into that if you would like to do that. And now I'm on my husband's medical insurance, so that's kind of nice.
Yay!
Yay!
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. And as for W-2 versus 1099, so when you subcontract, you're a 1099 employee, and this is how I started out. And I'd like to preface this like, this is what I've done. And if you speak to another traveler, this may not be the route that they've gone. They may do everything totally different. They may completely disagree with what I say. And it's probably the way they've done things. But, I've only done this for 4 years. So it's a lot of trial and error kind of thing. So I first started with a Perfusion company. That's W-2. But when you subcontract, you're 1099. And then I was always told, even when I started subcontracting with you 2.5 years ago, that you should form an LLC or S Corp to protect your assets. If you were to get sued, then they're not going to be able to like come after you completely. So form an LLC, and that's what I'm doing now. I formed an LLC, and basically whenever I get my payment from whatever contract, it goes. I have a management company who manages everything now. It gets paid into the business, and then my business pays me. So I'm a W-2 technically now.
Okay.
So I don't know what way it's better.
Right.
We shall see. But as for taxes, you're a 1099 employee, you pay quarterly taxes, and you don't just pay quarterly taxes to your state, you pay quarterly taxes to the states you've worked in. If I had to tell you one piece of advice, is to get a good accountant, sit down and talk to them about how all of this works, because that's not my major. I nearly failed accounting in college. And, that's my one piece of advice, is to talk to an accountant about all this and what's the best route for you.
Okay, great. I did have a question here about state licensing, but I think we can just kind of quickly go over that and say, when you're a traveler or a full-time perfusionist, there are about 13 states maybe that require licensing, and you have to have a license in that state to practice perfusion. and they're all valuable. People ask me, well, which license should I get? What I do recommend, as you have, is once you do get that license, to continue to maintain it, because it's a lot easier to maintain, even though it does cost a little money, versus trying to get it again. I don't know if you have any thoughts on licensing or guidance.
If I had to go back and get licensed again in the 5 states I have licenses, it would be to like choose 5 states and do it all at one time, because I've done it one by one. And each license you get from here on out, you have to send back to the other states to verify the license.
Right.
And not only does that cost more money to verify, it becomes a hassle. It becomes a holdup when you're trying to get a new license. If that medical board and your new state license has not heard back either from the American Board of Perfusion, which they're pretty good about the whole licensing procedure.
Illinois is a little slow, aren't they?
I don't know. I don't have Illinois.
I remember someone was waiting for months. They said it was going to be 4 or 5 months.
And that's the other thing. You don't know when those state boards are meeting. So if it's a once a month kind of deal and you just missed that month, you're going to be waiting 2 months for your license. So my advice is, if you have the money, take 5 or 10 all at one time so you don't have to verify back, and just get them all.
Smart. Good advice.
Because now once you get one, you have to verify. You have to keep verifying all of them.
Right.
Even if you don't use them. So.
Yeah. So one last question. I don't know if there's anything else we haven't touched on regarding traveling that you would like to mention for those considering traveling. Any feedback?
Sure. I think people want to get into traveling because they see the glamour of traveling. They see that the traveler comes in and they leave, and it can be a great life, but I don't think people see like the backside of it and what's behind closed doors. And I was given a good piece of advice from an independent traveler who negotiates her own contracts. And she said, starting out, if you're going to go this route, first of all, you need to have $5,000 in your bank account if you want to be a traveler with a company, or approximately 10 to 15,000 if you want to do it on your own. And I think that's something we didn't really talk about, is like, when do you get paid? And specifically with Perfusion Life, like, you start your first week, but you're not being paid for all the expenses you've paid out, which are your flights, your hotels, your rental car. You're not going to get paid that until, so you first start your first week that Friday, and then 4 weeks afterwards. So that's about 33 days. And that's if you get all your expenses in on time. So you may need to buy all of your plane tickets or your rental cars, because plane tickets cost less. Maybe not now with COVID, because you could buy a ticket like closer to time, but you're not going to be reimbursed until 33 days later. And not even at that, you're not going to be reimbursed for 3 months of expenses you paid for. You're being reimbursed week by week of what that week cost. And I don't think people realize, and maybe you can explain this a little bit more, I found in traveling that contracts really don't pay. Like, you're not paid. Whoever has the contract, they're not paid until 30 days after the person starts. And that's why, the reimbursement is like that. Is that a fair statement? That's just what I found.
If you're lucky, you'll get paid on 30 days. A lot of hospitals like to pay on 45 or 60, and that's always a negotiation with the hospital, trying to get them to pay. And they may accept 30-day terms, but still pay on 45 or 60. So that's the other issue. But we have, for people that say, hey, I can't afford to do that, is there anything you can do to help me? We've paid people traveling expenses, reimbursed them a little sooner, for those particular travelers. We've also said, well, what if we gave you a Perfusion Life American Express? A lot of people like to use their own credit card so they get the points.
Right.
But we do have a couple of travelers, and sometimes we've given them Perfusion Life American Express, and then they'll stop using it once they kind of get up and running, so they can get their own points, and it just sort of gets them over that first couple of weeks.
It is, though, a good point, like you said, though, to kind of think about, you might have to kind of float your own expenses just for a little bit, and it is good to have some startup capital, basically.
Yep. Like starting your own business.
Yeah,
Right.
you can't.
Right.
It's tough. You want to just show up and have $0, and then because you said you can get in a bind fairly quickly if no one's there to help you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing is that people see the glamour of traveling and they don't see what's happening behind closed doors. You need a good support team behind closed doors. I'm lucky that my husband understands, like we've had conversations at what point would I need to come off the road, because if you're like, I'm on the road 12 to 13 weeks. And then if I'm not working on the weekends, I'm home on the weekend for like less than 48 hours before I'm back on the road again. So a lot of people don't think about that in their head. Like if you have kids at home, or I understand why now. I used to laugh when I heard that like all the men have their wives in tow with their kids. I understand now because it's a hard life if like, you know, you have one person out of the picture or you're trying to like maintain your relationships. I think people don't see that part of like, it is a hard kind of life when you're living in a hotel. It's not just all this glitz and glamour and like you come in, you leave. No, there's the backstory of it. Like, you know, someone's keeping up the house at home and, you know, those kind of things. So I hear a lot of people who want to get into traveling. And like I said, my dream job of 2 weeks on call, 2 weeks off, I haven't found that. Or if it came across, I was already in another contract for 13 weeks.
Right.
So I haven't found that dream job. And I think a lot of people who want to do traveling are saying, yeah, I'd like to jump in for like a week on, a week off, or 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And that's not the average contract. The average contract is 12 to 13 weeks, or maybe you can say yes or no, or like there are those few that come up that are, I need a weekend or I need this, but usually they're 12 to 13 weeks, and that's 12 to 13 weeks you're not at home. So I just want people to consider that, because that's something I didn't think about. I was like 2 weeks on, 1 week off, or three weeks on, 1 week off, and that's just kind of not what the economy is at the moment.
Right. That changes all the time, but you're right. Most assignments right now are longer assignments. Yeah. Can we jump into some lightning round questions?
Oh, okay. Lightning round. Let's go.
Very anticipated lightning round. Again, I know you've seen a couple of these, so you kind of know. You'll run through, and then then we'll come back and we can see why you said what. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sam's gonna start the timer in 3, 2, 1, go. If you could travel back in time, where and when would you go?
The Victorian age, 1920s.
Cool.
Favorite junk food?
Ice cream.
Texting or phone calls?
Phone calls.
Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
Absolutely not.
What is the secret to happiness?
The secret is being content with what you have now and not wanting more.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
Be able to speak every language in the world.
That's right. You and me, right now. We're having it out. Let's go. Come on. Come on.
All right, so that was the end of it.
Another 100%. You
Yeah.
got 100% on that. Good
Perfect
job.
score. Good job. So you said Victorian era?
Yes.
Did I say it correctly?
Yes. I think there's something glitz and glamorous about that whole age, just the clothing, how like, I don't know, women are just like conservative, but just pushing the edge of like, I don't know, raising their dresses right above their ankles and just a little bit higher. I don't know. There's something about that age and the properness and the like, I don't know, all the gentlemen of that age. I don't know. There's something about that age I've always been drawn to.
I like it. Favorite junk food, ice cream.
Yes, ice cream. I am one of the things I do when I go to different cities has tried their different ice creams. Everyone says that they have the best ice cream, and I love trying different ice creams. So,
Do you have a favorite flavor?
yes, salted caramel.
Okay.
That's pretty good. That's pretty
A little salt, a little sweet.
good. Yeah.
Mhm.
So texting or phone calls?
Phone calls. I don't know. I'm like borderline millennial. So
Yeah.
I was born in '84. So they say like I didn't have a cell phone until like I went to college, and then texting. It took me a long time to start texting people. So I just think a phone call is very valuable, especially when you're trying to find out information. Like I know like a lot of people text now, and you go in restaurants and you go everywhere and everyone's on their phone texting. Like I just think the value of a face-to-face kind of conversation is becoming obsolete, and the kind of like phone calls of like you having to actually call and talk to someone.
Yeah. I like that too. I used to text a lot more than I do now, because now I think I'm just more adamant to actually get the information than have more of a kind of a easy conversation. So invisibility.
Yes. I don't know. I like to be the fly on that wall. Like you always wonder what's going on. Like, I don't know, behind closed doors and invisibility. If you're on that fly on that wall, you'd really know what happened.
I like that. You answered it kind of the way I expected you to. You've never worn socks with sandals.
No, there's something gross with that. Like that's just wrong on all levels. I don't care how high that sock is, or if it's an invisible sock. You're not supposed to do that.
Like Gary said last time.
Yeah, he said
just
no.
wear shoes.
Yeah.
You need to wear socks.
What is the secret to happiness?
Being content with what you have and not wanting more. I think especially when I travel to like third world countries, they're some of the happiest people I've ever seen. And it's a dose of humble pie for me, because like in the US, you're able to have all of this stuff and you're able to like buy more, and it's always like more. But some of the poorest people in the world are the most happiest. And I've learned that if you learn to become content with what you have and you're okay with it and not wanting more, but want to like better yourself and get more experiences versus material items, it's the secret to happiness, and being like okay with what you have now.
I agree.
And then beach or mountains?
Mountains. I like the beach, and it's peaceful for like the first hour, but I'm an active person, so I'd like to go to the mountains and hike or ski, or and the scenery is beautiful too. So I mean, beach is nice, but that's boring after a while.
I understand.
And you were the first person to answer this next question with your answer. You'd rather be able to speak every language in the world.
Yes. Well, that's because I travel a lot. And I don't just travel to like Italy or France or Spain.
Yeah.
I'm traveling to like places people usually wouldn't travel. So I think being able to speak every language and be able to converse with everyone in their language would be kind of cool, instead of just like, do you speak English, or having to do motions with your hands or something.
Do you speak multiple languages now?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I speak English.
Yeah.
But luckily, everyone in the world, for the most part, I say
English.
for the most part, because there are countries that do not. Mostly everyone speaks English, and they want to practice English with you.
Right.
That's great. So those are lightning round questions. That's kind of all we had planned. Do you have anything more that you would like to say to our viewers and before we sign off?
I'm excited. If you're thinking about traveling, I think the hardest first step is to actually take the step and do it. I think a lot of people think way too much into it. And I guess I'm more of a risk taker. I like take the step and then find out the consequences later. But it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be a perfusionist too, if you're traveling. So I hope like some of these answers and some of these questions help you make your decision. I just wanted to kind of give you the well-rounded picture, which I kind of had and kind of didn't have. So I just, take that first step. And Adam and Todd are great to work with. Love working with them, and very honest, great people.
Thanks, Andrea.
Great,
We
yeah,
appreciate
thank you.
that. You're a real Perfusion traveling rock star for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfusion rock star. So lots of great feedback from Andrea about your performance and traveling. Todd, what do you have to say?
Well, thank you all for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this around. I think this was a really interesting interview. I think a lot of you are going to really enjoy it. Hopefully you did. Yeah, keep Perfusion rocking. We'll see you next time.